Hello, good morning, and good afternoon, everybody. My name's Steve. I'm one of the trainers over here, and a lot of you were probably on the basic training webinar yesterday or earlier this week or maybe last week. But this is the Live Farms webinar. Thank you for joining me. Yeah, we're going to go over live farms today. I mean, we do touch on it in the basic training, but we're going to dive a lot deeper into it today. First of all, can someone just shoot me a message in the questions box? Let me know if the audio is okay. I'd appreciate it. All right, so it looks like we're okay. I uploaded a couple handouts into the handout section there. Or I'm sorry, just one handout for this webinar, and it is the training outline for the live farm. So basically what I go through during this webinar, and also later on, probably tomorrow, I'll try to do it today, but probably tomorrow I will send you a replay of this webinar. It does take a little time to process after the webinar, so depending on how soon I can get it done, but I'll try to shoot for today, maybe tomorrow. I'll email that over to you. All right, let me actually go ahead and open up my couple of slides I want to share with you here. I always forget to do that ahead of time. Here we go. All right, so you guys should be able to see a couple slides I'm going to show you real quick, and then we'll hop over to the ReboGateway system and work on our farms here. So the first thing I want to talk about here is just tell you what a live farm is. So what is a live farm? A live farm is a saved set of properties within ReboGateway that is continuously monitored for new homeowner life events that occur within those properties. The user receives a daily notices email reporting new activity that has occurred in their active live farms. What a live farm is not, and this is a common misconception. That's kind of one of the reasons that I started doing this webinar, is because people would have the wrong idea about what a live farm is. And one thing it's not is it's not just a saved search that ReboGateway is going to monitor or notify you on when new records meet the criteria of that saved search. So a lot of times people will think, let me pop over to ReboGateway here, that you can go in here and you can run a search, right, for divorces, whatever that search is going to look like. I'll just go back a month here. Run the search, get some results, and I save it here. It does say save to a new farm, but what I'm actually saving here is not a farm. This would just be a list of results, right? Save. So again, there's two things you can save in your account. One would be a live farm, and the other would be a save list. And that's what we just saved. Now the system doesn't know the difference between the two. Everything's saved into the live farms module. That's why I begin the title with either list or with farm. But people will think that they run a search, they save a list, and then the system is going to tell them anytime a new divorce occurs, right? That's not really the way it works. It's just limited to the properties that you choose and save as farms. Now you can have up to 1,000 properties per farm, and most of you can have up to 8 of those active at any one time. So like I just said, things to note regarding farms. Live farms can hold up to, but no more than 1,000 properties each. The second bullet point here is there is no limit to the number of live farms you can save into your account. That's actually not true. I'm sorry, I learned after I created this. The limit is somewhere up around 60. It means you could save close to 60, whether they're farms or lists. And that's plenty. I mean, that's more than enough for most users, so that should never be an issue. And then the last point here is that the standard ReboGateway subscription allows for 8 live farms to be actively monitored at any one time. And it says here active selections can be changed by user at any time. So that means that you could create 16 farms, save them in there, have 8 of them active for a period of time, and then go into your control panel in live farms and deselect those and select the second set of 8 for those to be active for a period of time. So you can change which ones are active. And then a little asterisk here is additional blocks of active live farms can be purchased as a ReboGateway add-on. So if you're interested, I say call customer service, or if you just want to shoot me a message in the question box, say, hey, I think I might want to add on another block of 8. It's like $10 a month, or if you pay for the year, you get a little bit of a price break. So just shoot me a message in the questions box, and I can reach out to you after the webinar. All right, so really, the first thing you need to think about when you're setting up your farms is how to choose properties for these live farms. There's a couple different approaches. Geographically or demographically, or by using a kind of a combination of both. Geographically, basically, you're taking a set of properties on an area, from an area on the map. So you're using the boundary search or the radius search to create a search area. You're searching for all those properties, you're getting a number of results back, and you're saving them as a farm. Now, with the demographic approach, it's properties are more selected based off of a set of criteria in the filter. So we may not be focused so much on one particular area. We may open up that radius to cover even as large as the entire county, but we're going to have to focus more on the filter to narrow that total number of properties down to, around 8,000. And then from that point, once we do that, we can break those down into chunks of 1,000 and save each one as a farm. So you could use one or the other here, or kind of you can use both. All right, so that's it for slides. Let's get out of there. All right, so what we're going to do at this point is we're going to go ahead and create a farm. We're going to create a farm twice. We're going to do one just strictly geographically, and then we'll do one more demographically. Now, usually agents are going to use the geographic approach. They may already have an established farm out in the real world. They want to grab the properties from it, save them, and watch them. And it also allows you, if you do have a geographic farm out there, your farm may only have 500 properties or 800 properties. ReboGateway will monitor up to 8,000. So you could create some new farms on the map and just watch them in ReboGateway. A lot of times people getting on this webinar are in the process of figuring out where they're going to create their actual farms out in the real world. So this can be a way to kind of start watching those properties right away before you actually get out there and start doing your branding to those areas. So let's go ahead and set up a live farm from a geographical standpoint here. So step one to creating a farm is you go to your lead type box and you put the system in farm utility. Oops, farm utility right down here. There's 3 functions related to the live farms here. Farm utility, this is where we create the farm. Live farm is where we can go manage them, like delete them or rename them, and also it's where we go set up what we want to be notified on in our daily emails. And then the live farm search, that allows you to, all you do is put in a date range, and it's going to search all of your active live farms for all of the lead types you have selected per farm during that period of time, whatever your date range is. So it's actually a very useful tool. I'll show you a real good way to utilize that once your farms are set up. So farm utility, we're going to go there to create a farm. It looks like we have a couple questions. Let me pop in there. Yeah, okay, so Mario said, so we can watch over 8 farms as long as they total 1,000. Yeah, so each farm holds up to 1,000, and you can have up to 8 of them active at any one time. So that's up to 8,000 properties that we can be watching for you around the clock. Okay, and go ahead and type your questions in there as we go. I can take a little breaks to answer those. So step 1, we went into farm utility. And step 2 now is we need to identify an area on the map, right? And we have to use a radius search or a boundary search to do that. County search doesn't work here, it's too big. Radius or boundary search. I'm going to use a radius search for today. Now I can type in an address if I wanted to and it would pinpoint it, or I can close this out and manually locate the area on the map. So I'm going to do Woodbridge, it's where I live. I'm going to double click right in the middle of it, and it's going to recenter my radius. All right, there it is. Defaults to 1/2 mile. So at this point, when I'm in the farm utility and I'm searching, when I hit search, it's looking for total number of properties in this shaded area. But it's also looking at anything I have in the filter criteria. If I'm looking if I'm really setting this up more demographically, I'm probably not going to use too many filter criterias here. But one I do recommend looking at is the property types. You know, if you're not interested in condos, or maybe you're not interested in 2 to 4 units, you can choose what you want to capture here. You can use anything you want in here. You know, now you're going to control the number of properties that come back between the size of your radius and what you have in the filter. But if you're setting it up geographically, you probably want to be pretty basic here. So I'll just leave everything in here, and I'm going to go ahead and click submit. Now, I mentioned this on the basic training yesterday. I rarely actually click the search button. I always submit my search to the filter like 90% of the time, because I like to come in here and make sure, I like to reset it pretty frequently, make sure it's just set the way I want it, because it's real easy to use a set of criteria on a search and then pop over to the farm utility and forget it's in there. So I just make it a habit to come in the filter and submit my search through the filter. All right, so the system identified 1,871 properties in the shaded area that meet our filter criteria. So at this point, I could grab the pin and drag it to the left a little bit. And because I know that my filter criteria is saved and I'm good, I'm just going to hit search. 1421. I'm going to go ahead and slide this down a little more and hit search again. So I'm just going to do this a few times to identify close to 1,000 properties. Now, if I was doing this with a boundary search, I would have dropped pins and created boundaries, and I may be needing to clear those and redraw the boundaries if there's too many properties. But radius search can just be easier to identify those. 844, so I'm under now. Let me go ahead and, the more I zoom into the map, the better traction I'm going to get with this pin here. 958. I think I might have gone over here. Yeah, I went way over. 964. And I'm meticulous, so I always like to get as close to 1,000 as I can. I figure I might as well, you know, maximize my farms and get as many properties in there as possible. 1051. 966. Looks like that's the closest I'm going to get right now. So at this point, if I wanted to save my radius, just so I have it for future reference, the drawing, I could click Save Radius. I could give it a name and submit just to save it. It tells me it's saved. Now all I've done is just save the drawing. Now I want to save these 966 properties as a farm. So I'm going to come over here and click Save right under the map. And it says save to a new farm. Again, the two things you can save in your account are farms and lists. So I'm going to title this one a farm, and I'm going to say, and I'll just call this Woodbridge, or whatever makes sense to you. And click Save Farm. Give it 3 to 5 seconds to save. If you do click this more than once, it will duplicate, so try to be patient. And here's my confirmation message. I know it's saved. So you can locate your farm in Live Farms in your lead types. So now that we've created the farm here, using the farm utility, I told you this is where we manage the farms, and that's where that confirmation said to go. So we're going to go there, and I'm going to click right on this Manage button. Here's my control panel to specify daily notices. I'm going to go ahead and delete these other few things I had saved in here already, just to make it simple. Oops. All right, so we're left with the farm we just created. There is 966 properties in it. It's currently checked as active, so it's taking up one of my 8 slots. This says 3, but if I was to go back in, it should update. Yeah, 1. So we're currently using one of our 8. I can change my name in here if I need to make an adjustment to that. And then I want to go ahead and look at the categories and just make sure the ones that I want to be notified on are checked. So notice a default, notice a sale, REO, divorce, probate, for sale by owner, for lease by owner, and estate sales. So these are all the main lead types here. Public is any changes made to the title. So it's not so much a lead type, but if you want to see those, you know, quick claims and transfer notices and things, you can have that checked or not. And then if your account is connected with your local MLS, you're in one of the areas that we're connected with, you would have the option, and you are a licensed agent, you'd have the option to utilize MLS sold, MLS listed, which again are more informational, but MLS off here includes expireds. So if you want to see expired, I suggest checking that one. And lastly is the number of days column. And when we went over this yesterday, I think in the basic training, so I apologize if it's redundant for some of you, but I figured repetition helps learn. So number of days is basically it's the number of days you're going to see a new event for. So if a new notice to default happens, you're going to see it on your email notifications for the next 10 days before it goes away. Another way of looking at it is it's a rolling number of days back that the system's watching. So if I get an email today, it's showing me any of these events that have occurred in these properties over the last 10 days. Now you can set that to whatever you want. I usually recommend somewhere around 5 or less, but it's really up to you. And just make sure you click submit to save any changes. You can always come in here and regenerate your daily notice, which is going to look at all of the farms you currently have selected active, and it's going to look for any of these lead types that have occurred over the last 5 days. You'll notice when I run this now, there's a notice of default, and there's a property that was listed on the MLS. That's what it has to show me right now in the last 5 days. I could click on this link right here. It says more info. And that'll take me right into the lead record in ReboGateway. Here it is. So from this point, you could come in and use your CRM and, give it a lead status or make notes or give yourself a task to, maybe you want to door knock them on Friday. So that's one way to manage those leads, is right through the email. But you don't have to. You can just kind of use those emails as a gauge and just keep your eye on them. And then, when time permits or when you decide you want to sit down and log in, you can use the live farm search and pull up all the events that have occurred during a date range. All right. Okay, so we've set up a farm geographically there. Now let's go ahead and try one kind of with a more demographic approach, which is more commonly used by investors, but can be used by either. So again, step one, same. We're going to go down to farm utility. Step two, we still need to identify an area on the map, but if I'm going to do this from a geographical approach, I'm going to use a radius search for sure, and I'm going to close this out. Basically, you can go ahead and cover the entire area that you want to pull properties from, and you can go as large as covering your entire county. Right? And it's okay if it's too big. Literally, I could drag this to cover half the country, and that would be okay, as long as my county is in there. So don't worry about it being too big, because it's only going to look at the properties in this selected county anyways. All right. Now, I've identified my area, easy, county, but I'm going to go into my filter now. I'm going to rely on using the filter to really determine the properties I want to pull. So maybe, there's different setups you can use. It's really up to you. But some that are kind of common, could be, maybe you only want to see single-family residences in Irvine, and by holding down the control button, I can select more than one. Irvine and Tustin, right? And what else here? Maybe I want to watch the people that purchase during the peak of the market. They have a higher probability of life events occurring, right? That's one demographic you could watch, or you can kind of custom tailor it. So you know what? I just want to watch the absentee owners that own single-family residences that purchased, more than 10 years ago, right? So they purchased before that date, so the probability of equity is higher. Let's run that. Submit. How many properties come back that meet that? 4,643. Okay, obviously way too big for one farm, but what we like to do first, is get this number around 8,000, right? Because that's the total number of properties that we can watch. So let's focus on getting this number around 8,000. Once we do that, then we can break it down into chunks of 1,000. So let's, you could add some more cities in, or maybe we're not going to worry about purchase date. You're just going to kind of play with that filter until you get a good solid number around 8,000. 7,502. Cool. Let's go with that for now. And again, this really up to you how you're going to do this. You know, a lot of times people are going to put minimum beds in there, or minimum assessed values. Just keep in mind the assessed value from the county tends to be lower than market value, so you might want to kind of adjust for that when you're putting a number in there. But it's really up to you how you're going to select these properties. So I'm going to stick with the 7,502. Okay, so this is basically going to be 8 farms. Ideally, I'd probably want to get this closer to 8,000, but for today, we'll use this. So now I need to break this number down into chunks of 1,000. So I'm going to have 7 farms with 1,000 properties, and then 1 farm with about 500. The way you do that is by utilizing the filter again. Now, the way I prefer, and I think it's the easiest way to do it, is by using building size here. So this is square foot, minimum and maximum. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with nothing in the minimum, and in the maximum, I'm going to make my best guess as to what that number is going to be in square foot to try to just capture 1,000 of these. So I'm going to go from 0, which is blank, to say 1,100 square foot. Submit. Let's see how many come back. Okay, I had 861. So I want to get that right around 1,000. So let's go back in the filter and let's try 1135. Again, you're just kind of starting out with a best guess till you really dial into that correct number. 966 is the total number of properties. So let's increase that a little bit more. We'll try 1150. 974. So it's a little bit of a dance. You're going back and forth. But once you set up your farms, that you only have to set them up one time. Let's try 1162. And again, you can be as meticulous about this as you want. If I was to save this farm right now with 1,011, it's going to drop 11 properties off and save 1,000 of them. And you can do that if you want. But some people would prefer to really dial it in. All right, I think we're almost there. Let's try 1157. Jeez, try 1155. 983. All right, so 1156 should be the closest number I can get here. So I'm going to make a note. I'm going to write down 0 to 1153. 1156, I'm sorry. And I'm also kind of making a note of any filter criteria I used. So I'm writing down I only did single family residents, and it's just absentee owners, and that's about it. Okay. So you'll see there's actually 1,002. I'm going to save these 1,000, and 2 will just drop off there. So I'm going to go ahead and click the Save button and save to a new farm. So I'm going to say farm, and I'm going to basically describe my farm. So I'm going to say, actually I'll start with the location. Irvine and Tustin absentee owners. Actually, I'm going to abbreviate this. You want to try to fit everything in this block here. So I'll say absentee owner, single family residence. Then I'm going to put here my size, my square footage in. All right. And I'm going to click Save Farm and give it a few seconds to save here. So now that my first farm has been saved, okay, we're good to go. I'm going to close this out. Now I'm going to go back into the filter, and I'm going to start now at 1157. So I'm going to say, okay, well, show me the next set of properties from 1,157 square foot to what is my next best guess, 1,300. And again, we're going to go back and forth until we get that right around 1,000. Let's see, 1,350. No, let's try 1,425. 1168, so we're getting close. We'll just do one more here. We'll just save this farm and then we'll be good. 1,115. So maybe around 1,380. 945. All right, so I'm just going to stop here just so we don't keep doing this all day, but I would be meticulous and get to that exact number. And I'll say, all right, so my next set I'm saving here is 1157 through 1390. So, okay, I'm ready to save these as my next farm. I'm going to click Save. Now, what I do, just to make it easier, is here's the last farm I saved. I'll just come highlight and copy this text, and then come up here and paste it, and then just change my square foot. Save farm. And you're just going to continue that process until you have all 8 of your farms saved. Once you have them all saved, you're going to want to go here, Live Farms. Click on that Manage button. And here's the 2 farms I saved. You would have all of yours in here when you're done. And just go ahead and make the adjustments I want here to what I do and don't want to be notified on. They're active. Go. Saved. All right, so now when I run Regenerate Daily Notice for the original one I created plus these other 2, oops, let me put a 5 in there. So I have that notice of default we saw earlier. Now in one of the new farms there's another notice of default. And in one of the other farms there's a divorce filing. That's just over the last 5 days. So the farms are helping you watch what's going on now. Right? What's just happening, and you're being notified on daily. Now, that being said, that we're all done with these here, I will show you we're in Live. To manage that box, just try to remember to get to that Manage box. It's in Live Farm. Click on Manage. So, again, just to review, Farm Utility creates the farm. Live Farm is where you go to Manage. And also, if you wanted to load your properties from a farm, you'd go into Live Farm and you can select that farm or list right here. And I'm not going to hit search. I'm going to go through my filter, reset, submit, and there's my properties. I loaded my properties from my farm or my saved list. And then the last function here for Live Farms is the Live Farm search I told you about. So I told you about, getting those daily emails and being able to click on the more info link, which takes you into the record in ReboGateway. From there you can, use the CRM to give it a lead category or make notes or create a task, or, you can start a new list, right? But you don't have to take action on the email. You can just use it as a gauge, and then when you come into ReboGateway, just go to Live Farm search. Put your date range in. Maybe you haven't been in here in a week, so you're going to go back, today's the 1st, so I'm going to go back from the 25th. And submit it. And it's going to show me all the events that have occurred during that period of time. So there's 3. And actually we've seen all 3 of these events. So. And those are, these are the ones we saw in our daily email. So, as far as managing leads, I showed you can use this to do those functions there. Or sometimes you can use your lists as a way to manage your leads. So you can say, okay, here's a notice of default, here's a divorce, here's a notice of default. Okay, I'm going to start a notice of default list I'm going to mark it to, right? So you use this little down arrow. It says append this record to farm. Well, you can actually create a new one too. So I'm going to say list Live Farm search, notice of default, and that was from 8/25/16 through 8/9/1/16. Save farm, and it says saved. So now what I can do is there's another notice of default. I'm going to click that down arrow, but this time I don't need to create a new one. I can just, there's my list for NODs for my Live Farm search. I can just append this one to that list I started. Now there'll be 2 in there. Let's go ahead and start one for divorces. Save farm. All right. Now that I've started these lists, every time I come in here, I could just keep appending records to them, right? And then, when I'm ready to go market, I go to Live Farm, and I go ahead and load that list. There's the NOD list I just created, and search is going to reload. There's those 2 NODs. I can go ahead and market to these as notice of defaults. right? So there's a couple ways to manage your leads. One is by utilizing and saving lists, and the other is by utilizing the CRM functions. And you can use both. So what I highly recommend is kind of a tip. So when you get all your farms set up, you get 8 farms set up, they're all active, they're going to be monitored. Once they're done, come in here to Live Farm Search and go back a year. Sorry, it's lagging here. Oh, there it is. Go to Live Farm Search, and then go back a whole year. See what has occurred in your properties, in your farm properties over the last year. This is a great list, starting list of people to market to, right? Look at there's 51 events just in those few farms that we created. Now, and here's all the lead types for each one. If you were to click on lead type here, it'll sort it by that category. So all the divorces are together, expireds, notice the defaults. It's a great list, starting list to market to. That's pretty much it. Any questions? Okay, Eddie says, how do I download a list, and does it download the mailing address of the owner? These are non-owner occupied properties. Yeah, so I think you're saying, can you export a list? Absolutely. So if you were to do a search, or you saved a list, right? We saved a list earlier, so let's go reload the properties from the list. I'll go to Live Farm. There's my list of NODs from my Live Farm search. I'm going to reload them. 2 results in there. Now in Rebo Marketing, I can export it right here. Export. Choose which format, or I can use custom export and choose the columns I want, right? And so this is all the columns that would be in the export. If I was to just click on CSV, it would include all these columns in here. And these ones that start with mail, that's going to be the homeowner's mailing address. So anytime it's an owner-occupied property, we always give you the homeowner's mailing address, whether it's in the export file or whether you're printing address labels, it's going to put the homeowner's mailing address on there, or if you're using postcards, it's going to put the homeowner's mailing address on there. ReboGateway always does that by default. Okay, Mario, take care. Yes, I will send the replay out of the webinar. I'm sorry, Bob, you said what was that part in the middle? What are you referring to? Yeah, Mario says, where can we learn about how often to market to our leads, such as sending mailers every 4 to 6 weeks, a certain amount of time, and any other lead marketing we can do? We really don't have like a webinar for that right now. We do talk about that kind of stuff on those 30-minute calls. And so, schedule a call, Mario. Let's get online one-on-one. But generally, as a general rule, what we have found with agents and investors is that mailing a list mail those homeowners every 4 to 6 weeks for a total of 6 times. That seems to be kind of the magic formula where you're going to see the maximum number of responses back. So something to start with. Feel free to schedule calls. So, all right, thank you so much, everybody. Let's see, Cliff said, can we save any lists in Open Office? I'm not sure what you mean there, Cliff, if you can kind of restate that for me. All right. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. This isn't going to be too long of a webinar today, but I am going to send out the replay to it as soon as possible. Thanks for joining me, and I really look forward to talking to you guys on those 30-minute calls. You guys have a great day.